This method is described in paragraph 14. Here a meditator does not go by one by one at a time, but taking them all as one. So any kind of materiality, whatever, all consists of the four primary elements, and the materiality derived from the four primary elements. And he likewise descends the mind base and a part of the mental database as mental. Then he defines mentality, materiality, and brief thus. This mentality and this materiality are called mentality, materiality. So, in this method, just all material properties are rupa, matter, and then the mind base and dhamma base are called nama, and so this is nama, this is rupa, something like that. Now, if the immaterial fails to become evident, now this is important. Now, when you practice vipassana meditation, sometimes you see the material things clearly. In your mind, not with your eyes. You see the material things clearly, but you don't see yet the mentality or mental states clearly. So if you do not see the mental states clearly, don't try to see them clearly, but try to see the material things clearly, more clearly. So as your seeing of matter gets better and better, then your seeing of mental states will become clearer and clearer. So this is explained in this paragraph, and there is one passage which was quoted by Mahasi Sayadaw in his book on the progress of insight. So therefore, in proportion as materiality becomes quite definite, disentangled and quite clear to him, so the immaterial states that have that materiality as their object become plain of themselves too. So if you cannot see the mentality clearly, don't try to see them clearly, but go back to the matter and try to see them. Try to see matter clearly. And when you see matter clearly, then the mental states will become clear to you. And there is a simile given here. Just as when a man with eyes looks for the reflection of his face in a dirty looking glass and sees no reflection, he does not throw the looking glass away, because the reflection does not appear. On the contrary, he polishes it again and again, and then the reflection becomes plain of itself when the looking glass is clean. So to try to see the matter clearly, more and more clearly. And just as when a man needing oil puts sesame flour in a basin and wets it with water, and no oil comes out with only one or two pressings, he does not throw the sesame flour away, and so on. Now, it is in the commentary to Visuddhimagga also, it is said that it is sesame flour or sesame powder. But actually, when you want to get oil, you do not crush sesame seeds into powder and then you get oil from them. You just put the sesame seeds into a bowl or whatever, and then try to press it with something. You put some hot water and then try to, what do you call that? Mill?
When you actually
the
grinding, but it's like a pestle, and you sort of put a little bit of squeeze, perhaps squeeze.
Actually, yes, it is squeezed by the pestle, right? Yeah. But here it is strange that sesame flour is mentioned, but it doesn't matter. But on the contrary, he wets it again and again with hot water and squeezes and presses it. And then just as when a man wanting to clarify water has taken it should be kataka, not katuka. Kataka nut. We see on page 685. About 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or 7 lines. He cut the nut and put his hand inside the pot and rubbed it once or twice. The water does not come clear. He does not throw the Kataka nut away. On the contrary, he rubbed it again and again, and as he does so, the fine mud subsides and the water becomes transparent and clear, and so too, etc., etc. Now, Kataka is, we cannot translate it in English, but it is explained in one Pali dictionary, not the PTS. One Pali dictionary as the nut plant, the seed of which is used to clear water. So a kind of nut, you use it to clear water. And it's that, what do you call that? Botanical name is given in that book. It is Strychnos, one word, Potatorum. I don't know how to say that. Strychnos potatorum, or something like that. And in a Sanskrit English dictionary also, it is defined as, the same Latin name is given. The clearing nut plant, its seeds rubbed upon the inside of water jars precipitate the earthly particles in the water. So it is a kind of nut. For in proportion as materiality becomes quite definite, disentangled and quite clear to him, so the defilements that are opposing him subside. His consciousness becomes clear, like the water above the precipitated mud, and the immaterial states that have not, and that have that materiality as their object, become plain of themselves too. So you deal with matter again and again until you see matter very clearly, and as it becomes clearer and clearer, your seeing of mental states will become clearer and clearer. So, and then when these mental states become evident to you, then they become that way in 3 ways. That is through contact, through feeling, and through consciousness. In fact, it's also difficult to see these during meditation. Through contact means, say, you dwell on the earth element, and then when you concentrate on the earth element, then the earth element is the object, and here is your mind or your consciousness. So when you take earth element as object, your mind comes into contact with that earth element, and that contact becomes evident to you as the first conjunction, and the first meeting with the object. Sometimes you may see that during meditation, something striking the object or some going together with the object, and then feeling associated with that as the feeling aggregate. And there is a feeling, whatever object you take as an object, and there is the awareness of the object, and along with the awareness of an object there is always a feeling, sometimes pleasurable, sometimes painful, or sometimes neutral. This also that you will see. And the associated perception as the perception aggregate. Sometimes you may see perception, the associated volition together with the aforesaid contact as the formations aggregate, and the associated consciousness as the consciousness aggregate. So sometimes the consciousness or awareness of the object is more evident to you. Sometimes perception is evident to you, and sometimes feeling, and sometimes the contact with the object becomes evident to you. That you see through meditation. Likewise, when he has discerned them in this way, in the head here, it is the earth element that has a characteristic of hardness, and so on and so on. So in this way, through contact, through feeling, or through consciousness, the mental states become evident to the meditator. So, paragraph 23, that is important. Now, it is only when he has become quite sure about discerning materiality in this way that immaterial states become quite evident to him in the three aspects. Therefore, he should only undertake the task of discerning the immaterial states after he has completed that. That means after he has completed discerning the materiality and not otherwise. If he leaves off discerning materiality when, say, one or two material states have become evident, in order to begin discerning the immaterial, then he falls from his meditation subject, like the mountain cow already described under the development of Akasina. But if he undertakes the task of discerning the immaterial after he is already quite sure about discerning materiality thus, then his meditation subject comes to growth, increase and perfection. So, for those who practice vipassana meditation alone, it is imperative that they try to discern matter clearly first, and then later on mentality. Otherwise, as it is said here, this meditation the meditation, he will fall from his meditation. Now, after seeing the mind and matter clearly, or after defining mentality and materiality clearly, then one comes to see that there are only mentality and materiality as a given moment, and there is nothing over and above these two, mind and matter. So this is the correct view of things. So, and this correct view is described in the following paragraphs. So there is no being apart from mere mentality, materiality. Only there are mentality and materiality at any moment. Now, when you take breath as an object, and you see breath clearly, and you see also the awareness of the breath clearly, then you see that there are only these two things going on at that moment. The object, which is the breath, and the mind which is aware of this object. Only these two going on, and there is nothing we can call a person, a being, or a self, or whatever. So this view or this understanding comes only after you see mind and matter clearly, or you have defined mentality and materiality through meditation practice. I think the rest of this chapter is not difficult to understand, actually. And then the similes given are very easy to understand. So, as with the assembly of parts, the word chariot is countenance. So, when the aggregates are present, a being is said in common usage. So, what we call a being or a person, a man or woman, is just a common usage, just the convenience of usage or communication. But if we analyze it, we will find only mind and matter. So mind and matter put together, and we call man, woman, and so on. Just as the assembly is put together, the different parts put together, the thing with different parts put together, we call a chariot, or sometimes we call a house. We call a fist, a lute, an army, a city, a tree. So these are described in paragraph 25, 26, 27, 28. So a chariot is nothing but a combination of parts. I always use this example, saying using car instead of chariot. So if you take the different parts of the car apart, then you lose the designation car. There is no car at all, apart from the parts. Then when you put these parts back again in their correct places, then it becomes a car. So in ultimate analysis, there is no car at all, but just the different parts that are put together. So in the same way, there is no house. There are only walls, poles, roofs, and so on. If they are taken one by one we lose the designation house. And also the fist. So when you make a fist, when you bend your fingers and then there's a fist. But actually they are just a finger, not fist. And then lute with body and strings. So let's say a lute or a harp. So there are strings and there is what we call the body. So if we take strings one apart and body apart, then there is no lute or no guitar or whatever. And then an army. In the olden days, an army is said to consist of four parts. That is elephants, horses, infantry, and chariots. So these are called four component parts of an army. If it is an army, there must be these four things. And so these four things are called an army. But there is no army apart from elephants, horses, and so on. And also a city. A city is surrounding walls, houses, and states, and we call it a city. But there is no city apart from these houses and so on. And a tree, say root, branch, trunk, leaves, and all of these put together, and we call it tree. If they are taken one by one, we lose the designation tree. So also what we think to be a person, a human being, or an animal, or a man or a woman, is just the combination of mind and matter. So mind depends on matter and matter depends on mind. That will be just quite later. So they depend on each other and then function as a being, as a man, as a woman, and so on. So this is the correct vision. But when man rejects this correct vision and assumes that a permanent being exists, he has to conclude either that it comes to be annihilated or that it does not. So when you take there to be a being or a permanent entity, the self or soul, then we have to conclude that it is permanent or it is annihilated at death. So there are these two conclusions, and we cannot avoid one of these two conclusions if we do not have correct vision. So if he concludes that it does not come to be annihilated, he falls into the eternity view, because it continues to, according to him, it continues to exist. If he concludes that it does not come to annihilation, he falls into the it does not come to be annihilated, he falls into the annihilation view. So that it does come to be annihilated, he falls into the annihilation view. Why? Because the assumption precludes any gradual change like that of milk into curd. It is a paraphrase of the Pali sentence. So the direct translation of Pali sentence is something like this: because of the non-existence of some other thing which follows it, or which is its result, unlike curd, which exists following the milk. Now, the curd is made from milk. So when it becomes curd, there is no milk. So the milk disappears, and as the result of milk, which is the curd, exists. But if you take the being to be annihilated as at death, then it does not it is not correct, because a being is the combination of mind and matter, and say in the mind, and there are mental factors, especially the karma there, and so long as there is karma, the result of karma will appear in the future. So there will always be rebirth unless and until all mental defilements are eradicated. So if we take the being to be annihilated at death, then it is not in accordance with this. So it is difficult to explain the gradual change like that of milk into curd. It can be, I think it can be explained against the view of permanency too. Because if you take things to be permanent, then milk will not become curd. It will remain milk all the time because you take things to be permanent. And if you take things to be annihilated as at death or whatever, then with the disappearance of milk, there will be nothing. There will be no curd coming out of milk or as a result of milk. So you may fall into either one of these extremes. So he either holds back, concluding that the assumed being is eternal, or he overreaches, concluding that it comes to be annihilated. That is the words used in the Sutta, the holding back and overreaching. So if you take things to be permanent, it is like holding back yourself. And if you take things to be annihilated, it means it's like overreaching. That means going beyond the view that so long as there are mental defilements and karma, there will always be, say, results in the future, or there will always be rebirths in the future. But if you don't accept that, then you are going beyond that view, and so it is stated here as overreaching. And then he quotes the Sutta, a discourse. And it is from Visuddhimagga, yes. The holding back, overreaching, and then neither holding back nor overreaching. So the end of the Sutta is, and how do those with eyes see? Here a bhikkhu sees what is become as become. That means the become here means what those that have become, and so that means the five aggregates. So the monk sees five aggregates as five aggregates. That means they are individual essence, and also they are common essence. Individual essence means taking things one by one and trying to see its character and their characteristics. And common characteristic is common to all phenomena. Something like, say, now we are assembled here, and each one of us is different. So, say I'm a Burmese, you are an American, there may be some others not here now, say Vietnamese or whatever. So we are different individually, but as a human being, we are same. All of us are human beings. So our being human beings is the common characteristic of all those here. And then I being a Burmese, you being American, and so on, it's the individual essence or something like that. So a bhikkhu sees what is become as become means a bhikkhu sees the five aggregates according to reality, their characteristic or nature, and their common characteristic, which actually is impermanency and suffering and soullessness. So when he sees this, now he sees that with the fading away or with the eradication of mental defilements, there will be no more rebirth. But so long as there are mental defilements and so there is karma, there will always be rebirth. So this is a correct view. And then the paragraph 32 and so on, describe the interdependence of mentality and materiality. So mind depends on matter and matter depends on mind. They are not independent of each other. One has to depend on other for its existence. And so it's described in different ways and with different similes. And these are very, very good observations of the mind and matter being dependent upon each other. So the one is the simile of a blind man and a cripple. On page 691. For the purpose of explaining this meaning, they gave this simile as an example. A man born blind and a stool-crawling cripple. Stool-crawling is the direct translation of the Pali word. In Pali, a cripple is called a stool-crawling man or woman. Because since he is a cripple, he has to walk with the help of a bench or a chair or whatever, stool. So the blind man said to the cripple, "Look, I can do what should be done by legs, but I have no eyes with which to see what is rough and smooth." The cripple said, "Look, I can do what should be done by eyes, but I have no legs with which to go and come." The blind man was delighted and he made the cripple climb up on his shoulder. Sitting on the blind man's shoulder, the cripple spoke thus: "Leave the left, take the right, leave the right, take the left," and so on. So this is the interdependence of mind and matter. So mind alone cannot exist in human beings and in lower celestial beings also. So mind needs a material basis for its existence. And material base alone cannot function because it has no cognition, it has no desires and so on. But when these two come together, then they can function as a whole. So blind man has no efficient power and so on. And there are other similes like a marionette, or like two sheaves of reed put together and so on. So just as men depend upon a boat for traversing the sea, so does the mental body need the matter body for occurrence. And as the boat depends upon the man for traversing the sea, so does the matter body need the mental body for occurrence. Depending each upon the other, the boat and man go on the sea. And so do mind and matter both depend the one upon the other. So first we see mind and matter clearly, and then we see that there are only mind and matter and nothing else. And this mind and matter depend upon each other to function as a whole. So when we see this, then we are said to have gained the defining of mentality, materiality, or delimitation of formations, or just the purification of view, or the right, correct view.
Arhat, it's like somebody described it's like blowing out the candle. Is that what it is? Like mind and matter? Where he no longer needs the matter? Or
No, that is different. Here it is just a yogi, a meditator, seeing mind and matter as they really are through practice of vipassana meditation. Well, you can read a book and you can sit and you can think about this, and you can tell other people also that there is only mind and matter, and mind has the tendency and the characteristic of bending towards the object, and the matter is that which does not cognize and so on. But here, what is meant is not knowledge gained from reading or listening to others, but knowledge gained through your own experience, own practice of vipassana meditation. So first, we try to get stillness of mind, or we try to clear our mind of hindrances. So as the hindrances subside, our minds become still and tranquil and concentrated. So when mind has become concentrated, we will not fail to see what's going on at the present moment. Mind, matter. And so when we see that there are only mind and matter and we cannot find any other thing through experience, then we are said to have defined mind and matter clearly. So after defining or after seeing mind and matter clearly, we see that there is nothing over and above mind and matter, no being, and no man, no woman, no self, and so on. And then we also see that mind and matter depend upon each other. Mind cannot exist by itself and be functional, and matter also cannot exist by itself and function as a whole. So mind has to depend on matter, and matter has to depend on mind. So when we have this view, we are said to have the purification of view, or we are said to have reached the stage of this purification. Okay, now the next chapter is on overcoming doubt. Now, overcoming doubt comes after a meditator sees the cause and effect relationship between things. Now here, the knowledge established by overcoming doubt about the three divisions of time, that is past, present and future, means time by means of discerning the conditions of that same mentality, materiality. So in order to get to this stage, we must first see mentality and materiality clearly. And then we will see, or we must find out what are the conditions for mind and for matter. And when we can see the conditions or causes of mind and matter, then we will be able to overcome doubts about whether we have been in the past, or what we have been in the past, something like that. Now we will come to those later. So this chapter deals with the purification by overcoming doubt. That means trying to find the causes or conditions of mind and matter. Here also I think you need a little knowledge of Abhidhamma to understand this. To begin with, he considers that firstly, this mentality, materiality is not causeless. Because if that was so, it would follow that having no causes to differentiate it, it would be identical everywhere, always and for all. So if mentality and materiality have no cause, then it would be identical everywhere. And they will always be the same, and for all beings they will be the same, but it is not the case. It has no overlord, etc., because of the non-existence of any overlord, etc., over and above mentality, materiality. And because if people then argue that mentality, materiality itself is its overlord, etc., then it follows that their mentality, materiality, which they call the overlord, etc., would itself be causeless. Now, if they say that mentality, materiality itself is overlord, then their mentality, materiality must be without cause. But mentality and materiality are found to be with cause. So it is not correct to take that mentality, materiality itself is an overlord. Consequently, there must be a cause and a condition for it. What are they? Having thus directed his attention to mentality, materiality's cause and condition, he first discerns the cause and condition for the material body in this way. When this body is born, it is not born inside the blue, red or white lotus or water lily, etc., or inside the store of jewels or pearls, etc. On the contrary, like a worm in rotting fish, in a rotting corpse, in rotting dough, in a drain, in a cesspool, etc., it is born in between the receptacle for undigested food and the receptacle for digested food. For human beings. And behind the belly lining, in front of the backbone, you know what that means? Now, the real meaning is, what do you call it? Fetus, right? So the fetus lies in the womb, with its back to the belly of the mother. I mean, belly lining of the mother, and with it and facing the backbone. That is what is described here. I don't know whether that is really true. The fetus in the mother's womb faces the back of the mother. Is that?
Usually.
You don't know. You have to
don't
ask some
remember.
doctors. Okay, it's all right. So I think behind, instead of saying behind the lining, behind the belly lining, we should say with the back to the belly lining. And instead of saying in front, we should say keeping the backbone in front of itself. Surrounded by the bowel and the entrails, and in a place that is stinking, disgusting, repulsive, and extremely cramped, being itself stinking, disgusting, and repulsive. When it is born thus, its causes, root causes are the four things, namely ignorance, craving, clinging, and karma. And this is the cause. Now, please do not confuse the word root causes with the conditions in the Patthana. There are 24 causal relations described in the chapter on the dependent origination. The 24 causal conditions, and the first one of them is root cause. But their root cause means that the 6 roots, lobha, dosa, moha, attachment, hatred, delusion, and then non-attachment, non-hatred, and non-delusion. But here, the Pali word hetu is used here, but it is not hetu of the Patthana. So I think we can dispense with root cause here. When it is born, its causes are the 4 things, namely ignorance, craving, clinging, and karma. Now ignorance is one of the roots, right? Craving, one of the roots. Clinging, because it is craving, one of the roots. But karma is different. So one of these 4 things are the cause for the material body to arise. Since it is they that bring about its birth, and nutriment is its condition, since it is that consolidates it. So altogether we get how many causes? 4 causes, right? Ignorance, craving, clinging, and karma, and 1 condition, which is nutriment. So there are 5 causes and condition. 4 causes and 1 condition. So 5 things constitute its cause and condition. And of these, the 3 beginning with ignorance are the decisive support for this body, as the mother is for her infant, and karma begets it, as the father does a child. And nutriment sustains it, as the wet nurse does the infant. So karma produces, say, the physical body, and it produces it with the help of, with the support of ignorance, craving, and clinging. And then after producing it, the nutriment sustains it. After discerning the material body's condition in this way, he again discerns the mental body in the way beginning. Due to eye and to visible objects, eye consciousness arises. Now when seeing consciousness arises, it is not without cause or condition. So here, due to the eye and to visible object, eye consciousness arises. When we see something, there is seeing consciousness in us. But if we do not have the eye, we will not see. And if there is nothing to be seen, then there will be no seeing consciousness. So seeing consciousness depends on the eye and the visible object for its arising. Actually, not only these 2. There are some more. What are they? Light also. If it is in the dark, we do not see anything. So light is also a condition. And then attention. Attention is also a condition. Because sometimes even though a cup passes in front of us, we don't see, because we don't pay attention. So attention also is one of the conditions for the arising of, say, seeing consciousness, hearing consciousness, and so on. When he has thus seen that the occurrence of mentality, materiality is due to conditions, then he sees that as now, so in the past too, its occurrence was due to conditions, and in the future too, its occurrence will be due to conditions. Now, the present, the conditions of the present he sees directly, but of the past and of the future he uses inference. He does not see directly, but here by inference he concludes that the past and the future must also have conditions. When he sees in this way, all his uncertainty is abandoned. Now there are 16 kinds of doubts or uncertainty described in the discourses in many places. So they are given here. 5 with regard to past, 5 with regard to future, and 6 with regard to present. Now, was I in the past? That is 1. Was I not in the past? Number 2, that is. What was I in the past? Number 3. How was I in the past? What was I in the past means, was I a king or a Brahmin or an ordinary person or something like that? And how was I in the past means, was I tall, was I short, or was I black, or was I fair, or something like that? Having been what was I in the past? So these are the 5 ways of doubting with regard to past life or past aggregates. Was I in the past? Was I not in the past? And he is just doubting, and he does not come to any conclusion. See, if he says, I was in the past, then there is no doubt. But here, he was not sure whether he was in the past or he was not in the past, or what was he in the past, and so on. And similarly with the future, shall I be in the future? Shall I not be in the future? What shall I be in the future? How shall I be in the future? Having been what shall I be in the future? And then 6 kinds of uncertainty about the present status. Am I? Or am I not? What am I? How am I? It's strange. How am I? Am I black or am I white? Am I tall or am I short? Do you have any thought about your height? Or about your color? No. So the sub-commentary explains that it is with reference to the atta that he doubts how am I means. And I identify my atta with myself. And how is that atta? Is that tall or is that short? So is it black or is it white or so on? So it is not about one's own height or color or whatever, but about one's atta. Whence all these beings have come. So from where did I come? And where will it be born? And where am I going? So these are the doubts regarding the present. So there are 16 kinds of doubts. So they are mentioned again and again in the sutras. So when he sees that there is mind and matter only, and mind and matter have their own conditions for their arising, then these doubts are abandoned or given up. Another sees the condition for mentality as twofold, according to what is common to all and to what is not common to all, and that for materiality as fourfold, according to karma and so on. Now, the condition for materiality is twofold, as that which is common to all and that which is not common to all. So, which is common to all means here 6 doors beginning with the eye and 6 objects beginning with the visible data are a condition common to all. That means it is common to all wholesome and unwholesome consciousness. Whether you have a wholesome consciousness or unwholesome consciousness, they are always there. So they are common. But But attention, etc. are not common to all. For wise attention, hearing the good Dhamma, etc. are a condition only for the profitable, that is wholesome, while the opposite kinds are a condition for the unprofitable. Now you find the wise attention and unwise attention as conditions for wholesome and unwholesome status, right? Karma, etc. are a condition for the resultant mentality. And the life continuum, etc. are a condition for the functional. In order to understand this, you must understand